Hello, good afternoon, and welcome once again to another live section with us. And today we are having a very, very special guest with us in the person of Barrister Faith Umar.
Thank you very much.
Hi,
Nice to be here.
how are you doing today, Ma?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. How about you too?
I'm all right. I'm doing very fine. So as we know, today we are going to be talking about some investment insights surrounding real estate.
All right.
There are a lot of real estate companies, not just real estate generally, but the key focus will be on real estate. But a lot of startups, people who want to be interested, who want to expand their knowledge on investment insight, especially when it has to do with budgeting and finances.
All right.
So, as seeing your very credible past and accomplishments, I feel like you're best suited to answer some of these questions I will be throwing at you.
I'll try my best. All right.
So, are we ready to dive into this?
Yes, please.
All right. So,
Let's
without
go
further
into it.
ado, let's get into the sections we have for
All right.
today. So, one of the questions I have on my list is this: as a financial advisor,
All right.
what do you advise our viewers, our audience? What are the key things that we should consider, in like before we invest? I mean, generally, but with a key focus on real estate. So,
Okay.
what are the key considerations that we must have before investing? Generally, but our key focus should be on real estate because that's a subject matter of what we're talking about today.
All right. Thank you, David. The subject of investment is something that is broad and somehow has been the term has been misused on different notes. But when we talk about investment, we should first understand that we have what we call asset classes of investment. And when you're trying to build up an investment portfolio, you will need to consider which of these asset classes best suit your financial goal. And then some of those asset classes, like we all know, we have the asset class of stocks, that's equity, the stock market. We have fixed income, all right. We have
Yeah,
things around cash and cash equivalents. And then we have what we call alternative investments. That's where derivatives and the real estate sector comes in.
yeah,
All right. So usually, if you now want to narrow down to the real estate sector, which in most cases the risk is a bit controlled as compared to the volatility of the stock market and all that. If you now want to concentrate on that of the real estate, there are certain things that, of course, must be considered for you to be able to soar or do excellently in that particular investment. So I'm going to look at it from two perspectives. I'm going to look at it from the macro perspective, what I call the macro perspective, and then later on we'll narrow it down to a more personal perspective. From the macro perspective, if you're an investor and you really want to go into the real estate investment, then you should first consider and understand what the real estate sector or the real estate market is all about. The trends, the insights around the market. You have to go ahead to do your research, understand what exactly happens.
yeah. Because a lot of people skip on this due diligence to make.
Exactly. So any Tom, Dick, and Harry vendor sells land here and there, and everybody's just jumping
Yeah,
up and just say invest, and then you're jumping up and you're
yeah,
rushing to go buy a land to go and buy.
yeah,
There's no proper research. Investment is intentional.
yeah,
Okay, you must be able to understand that this is what I want to do and have a plan, have a strategy. Just like every other business, you use a business perspective around it. Okay, so first you must have to understand the insights around the market, and then secondly, another thing that is very crucial is that you also must be able to understand government policies around the real estate sector, specifically in the area of your interest, the territorial area of your interest in real estate. Because as a business person, like I said, you have to wear your business hat around the real estate investment. As a business person, you must have your ears around the government corridors, the ministries, departments, and agencies that are directly connected to anything that has to do with the real estate sector. Have your ears around there because policies could change things, in a bit, and every other thing is upturned and all that. So be abreast with things like that. Another thing I think that should be considered as well too is ensuring that a lot of due diligence is done in terms of titleship, in terms of especially when it has to do with land purchase, in terms of the community in which this land is being purchased. So due diligence is key, all right, in terms of knowing that what you're buying or what you're purchasing or investing in, okay, has a correct or perfect title, has the right title, and so that you don't have to go ahead investing in encumbered properties or land, as the case may be. Just to narrow down on this as well too, another thing that I think is also very important in considering real estate investments, you have to be able to understand your costs. Like scripture says, no man builds a house and will not sit down to calculate its cost. So understand it could be capital intensive, but I also and always say that anybody can invest in real
Yeah,
estate
it
now.
just depends on the
Okay,
right planning, financial
exactly,
planning.
that's it. And so understand the cost around what you're about to invest in. Okay, do your research on all the cost factors, because I'll tell you this, because when you invest in real estate, you talk about things of tax and other side expenses, the legal expense and all that. You need to take note of all of this cost, because as an investor, those are the cost of your purchase that will determine the price tag you put on your properties or lands or whatever it is that you intend to resell for profit or to resell for a return. All right. So take note of all of these things. They are important, and ensure that this cost analysis is done. And also another thing you should do also is to check your margin of returns. This property I'm actually investing in, okay? Is it a viable place? Is it a viable property? Does it appreciate in this area? Do people around there have a purchasing power to buy? You know, you have to check all of these things. There's a whole lot of work to do around it. So you have to really be intentional around it. And then I will always say the risk factor around it. Every business has a risk factor, but also ensure that you do everything to mitigate the risk around the real estate purchase. So
Okay.
these are the few things I think I can get off my head
All
in
right.
considering real estate
So
investments.
beautifully said.
Yeah.
I picked a couple of things there, and when you were talking about due diligence, and I can't stress enough on the importance of due diligence
Yeah.
because, as we all know, the real estate market, especially in River State, Port Harcourt, where we are situated, where our base is one that people are skeptical in the sense that they've gotten defrauded by
Yeah.
individuals or
Yeah.
some companies who are not reputable or stuff like that. And this brings a question, right? So we understand that every business has its risks, right? So when it comes to real estate or investment, right? Real estate investment. So what are the risks of investment in real estate? And this is you see, one thing is to know the risks that are involved. Then you can now start looking at the problem. Someone says when you know the problem, then you're already halfway there to finding the
Yeah.
solution.
Yeah.
So let us look at now some of the risks that are involved in real estate, and then we can now look at how we can mitigate or we can avoid said risks in just a very few minutes.
Okay, the subject around investment is a crucial subject. I'll say that because the entire subject of investments, it has to do with risks. So first, as an investor, you have to understand your risk appetite. Okay, are you risk averse? Okay, are you someone that really cannot take so much of risk? Are you someone that, okay, you're very adventurous and
Yeah.
you can go ahead to take some significant
There's some
risk?
gamblers out there.
Okay, investment is not gambling. It's a whole different bug. But all the same, risk is a very crucial subject. Okay, and every asset class, like I've mentioned earlier, all have their risks. The stock market is a very volatile market. It
Very
fluctuates
volatile.
up and down. The risks are high. So there's a principle called risk and return. Okay, it's simple. The higher the risk, the higher return. The lower the risk, the lower the return. So if you check across board asset classes, there are risks everywhere. There's risk in every business. But then when it comes to real estate, the beautiful thing about real estate is, in as much as we still have risks in real estate, it is to a great extent and to a great level, you can mitigate all of this risk if you actually do your homework. I'll explain. So, when we come to real estate investment, purchase properties, landed properties, or whatever, it boils down to how much of your homework you've done by carrying out your due diligence in terms of titleship. All right. Yes, a vendor comes to you, a real estate vendor, and he wants to sell your property, he wants to sell, they want to sell your land and all that. Don't just leave the entire due diligence to them. Okay, they're passing title to you. So this is going to be something you will own and perhaps pass down to your children or your children's children. So there's a lot of work that you have to do on your part. And how you do this due diligence. Okay, if the land is registered in the ministry, go ahead to conduct a search in the ministry. Okay, if it's not registered, go ahead to do your field research, field due diligence, ask questions, ensure that you get to the proper root of title of that particular property and do the right things. So with real estate, the risk is controlled, except in cases where the factors of government policy comes in. So that's where we now begin to have controls that are beyond us. Okay, so the government can come up with a policy tomorrow, and then things change. We all can all see what has happened in states like River State, Lagos State, and then currently Abuja. Okay, so government policies could change a whole lot of things, but to a great extent, real estate has risks that could be controlled. and that could be managed, could be mitigated for the
And then we
benefits
also
of the
have cases
investor.
of people who actually have properties, but then did not know that these properties actually fall under
Exactly,
government's area.
exactly.
So
So it still actually falls on that failure in doing your due diligence. So you can have, you want to buy a property, a master land of property, you have the right to walk into the Ministry of Urbans or whatever and do your checks. Okay, I think I've witnessed some clients. I've witnessed some companies, real estate companies that wanted to go into estate of purchase of estates, and then they check in the Ministry of Urbans and all that, and they find out that, oh, this mass of land is running through, or it's above waterway, or it's above pipe, and then when these vendors sell to you, they don't tell you anything.
yeah, like all
Okay,
these
and then
government
10,
proposed
15
roads,
years
the
later, you see
government
the
comes
government
knocking.
coming, knocking and like, bruh, oh no, this is a top government this, this is a top government that. So you do not have to sleep on your rights. Equity does not aid the indolent. You have to go out there and do this research. Ensure you get the right facts and before you make such purchase or investments in real estate.
All right, while that is clear to us on doing your due diligence, as he said,
Yep.
the real estate market, the risk is being controlled. It boils down to how much due diligence you can carry out on a particular piece of property.
Yep.
Now, another thing that I strongly believe is a factor that needs to be considered when investing in real estate, which I also throw to you to throw more light on, is in how much is in budgeting.
All right.
Budgeting for a set piece of land. Now, a lot of times people plan or fail to plan for these things because investment, like any other thing in life, is something you plan and prepare for.
Yeah.
So the question now is, I want you to explain to us how we can determine the appropriate amount to allocate for purchasing land within, the overall,
Investment
financial portfolio,
portfolio. Yep.
of an individual. So
Okay.
what do you think? Considering the economy, there are
Yeah.
different classes,
Yeah.
different,
Yeah.
types of individuals. So for the average Nigerian, let's say, per se, in question.
Okay. So it is a broad question, and I'm going to look at it at various perspectives. Okay, like you said, it considers it has to do with the high net worth individuals. It has to do with the average Nigerian and all that. So there's something in finance on investments that we talk about, and it has to do with, we call it asset class weight, where every of the asset class has its percentage weight. Okay, so remember initially I talked about equity, fixed income, maybe cash and cash equivalents, real estate. So let's say we have a pie chart, all right, and then there's usually a standard way of doing this. I say if your current age subtracted from 100, whatever you get should be attributed, that percentage should be attributed to equity, okay, and then the other percentage you can divide, to fixed income and maybe to real estate. So the particular percentage you choose, okay, to fall into real estate could be, okay, this is the amount of funds that are going to go into real estate. But this talk I'm talking now should be for high net worth individuals that have that capital, that have that huge amount to invest. They're very intentional about it, so they invest. But let's come down to the average man,
Yeah,
okay?
which is where I live.
Okay, so just like something that the Nigerian exchange has recently implemented, where they have what we call retail investors, where it's not just institutional investors that come and invest. Okay, an average Nigerian could go invest in shares. You could use as much as 5,000 naira or whatever it is, and then there is a program or there's a structure that has been created. So the real estate sector is beginning to welcome such things, where you begin to have vendors that have fantastic payment plans. So, like I said earlier, when you want to invest in real estate, first and foremost, you must have a goal. Okay, you must have an understanding of why you're going into
The
real
why,
estate.
what's the
Exactly.
driving?
So once you do that, it makes you have a financial plan. It makes you come up with a financial plan, and that financial plan is a strategy of getting there. Okay, and once you come up with a financial plan and you follow it with due diligence, and you tell yourself, I earn 100,000 every month. I'm going to remove so percentage aside for real estate. Okay, now because you do not have a particular, you can't say you're having this fixed sum for this land because you don't even know how much the land is yet. You don't even know how much the property is yet. But then when you have an idea, you see different vendors, throwing different offers around and all that, you now have an idea of, okay, maybe this is a kind of 600,000 per plot property, or 1 million per plot. You understand your income, you understand your inflows, so you understand how best you can plan it. Have a financial plan, all right? Take a certain percentage out of it, and then let it tally with the payment plan of this particular real estate
So
vendors.
spread across 3 months,
Spread it
6 months.
across a particular timeline, depending on what the real estate vendor brings to you, and be diligent at it. Follow that financial plan, and before you know it, those dreams of having your properties are being realized. So it boils down to the individual and the financial plan you have on ground, the financial goal you have on ground as well. Anybody can invest. It's not. I don't think real estate investment is only for the ultra high net worth or the high net worth individuals. I think the average Nigerian, even a low incomer, can actually invest in real estate as well too.
Okay, so I have a question, right? This
Yeah.
one I think is quite personal to me
All right.
because even in times in my investment journey, there are times where I also struggle with this. So,
Yeah.
in general, so explain the importance of maintaining liquidity when it comes to budgeting for land investment because a lot of the times where people who have some of their purchasing power in assets,
Yeah.
so it's I feel like having that bulk or that bulk amount of money to pay at a certain point is the issue.
Yeah.
So what's the importance of maintaining liquidity when you are budgeting for land, especially in the case of land as
Okay.
an investment option?
Sometimes, like you said, you could be passionate about wanting to invest in real estate, and then every huge sum that comes to you, just want to throw everything into the investments and all that. Okay, so as part of financial planning, all right, we should understand that real estate, I think, falls within the rate of fixed assets. It's not a current asset. It's not something that there are some properties that you can sell within 12 months, okay, to make you liquid. Okay, so let's say it falls within the current fixed um, asset. That means you can't sell it off almost immediately. You can't get
Yeah,
cash of it
yeah,
almost immediately. So this just it's logical. It just makes you understand that, oh, I just have to have emergency funds one way or the other, or something that is cash or cash equivalent that I can always reach out to. So somehow there must be a segment or a percentage of your finances that must be left as cash, that must allow you to be liquid in case of emergency. So you don't throw everything you have just into real estate investments because you want to meet up and all that. Somehow stay liquid, okay? And that's why I said earlier on, it has to do with financial planning. A particular percentage, okay, of your income is set aside for it, okay, and then leaving you with some money to do some other things, run some other emergency needs and all of those things. So basically, all right, is stay liquid by having some money left over for emergencies and cash wise, but then a particular segment is left for real estate.
all right. I think that's very self-explanatory. You've really dived down to explain it for everyone out there to understand. So just before I continue in the questions, please, if you have any questions to throw in to aid and you want to reach out to one of us, please put your write down your questions, take them down. At the end of this, you can write them in the comment section or numbers displayed on the screen where you can send them either via mail or via text message or just try any of our avenues to reach us somehow and we'll be available to answer any and all questions you have as regards real estate, even in the case of financing, budgeting, and all of that.
Yep.
All right. So diving down into the next question. It has been great so far,
Yeah.
and we'll just have like 2, 3 more questions to go,
All right.
and then we'll wrap this up. All right.
All right.
Okay. So the next question I have on my list is this. So, what's the influence of tax and its implications in budgeting for land purchase? As we all know, Nigeria, like every other country, has tax being placed on the citizens. So,
Yeah.
how does this affect your budgeting for investment in real estate or land purchase?
Okay. So obviously the real estate sector has some level of tax accrued to it as well. And so while budgeting or planning your investment journey in real estate, definitely you have to consider the issues of tax or any other regulatory compliance as the case may be. Okay, so if you want to invest in properties, you want to buy properties, you want to sell properties, there are taxes like the capital gain tax, taxes like stamp duty, ground levies, all of these taxes apply. But then you also have to do your research. Every state, I think, varies in their different land laws and on whatever applicable taxes that are there for them. So Lagos State has its own applicable taxes when it has to do with lands and properties. Another state has its own applicable taxes and all that. So depending on where it is that you want to do your investments, you have to ensure you are grounded in the knowledge of the applicable taxes. But then this is a subject that you must take into consideration, when trying to invest because it has a great influence. You have to be actually have to be compliant with all of these tax regulations to avoid liabilities from either the FIRS or the internal revenue service of that particular state that is involved. But then also, when you purchase a property, one of the first things I think you should do is ensure you get your stamp duty, especially if it's a landed property, and then you can proceed, to go for your certificate of occupancy. All right. The C of O actually sometimes could be complex in getting, but it's something that is very well obtainable depending on the state of your residence as well. And then usually, for you to perfect the title up to that point, most of those taxes, even your personal tax, like your tax clearance, also will be needed for you to be able to facilitate your CFO and all that. Things like your certificate of deposit, which can be gotten from your surveyor, or so many other documentations. All of those things are things you should consider. So the tax is you should have a budget for tax, all right, when trying to invest in real estate.
All right. So, considering all the regulatory compliance bodies before investing in real estate is something that a lot of Nigerians do not really pay
Yeah, they
attention
don't. They
to.
don't.
I don't even think
They
people
don't.
really pay attention to tax and all
Yeah,
as a
they
whole.
don't even, yes, they don't, and so that's why they underprice their property sometimes, just like when you are, sorry to interrupt you, so just like when you're about to, if I'm into the purchase of or sale of goods, all
Yeah.
right, product, and I have to take into consideration every activity that has happened up to the
Yeah.
point
Up to a
of
point of,
purchase.
yeah.
All of those things are captured in my cost. It's called cost of purchase. All right. So that cost must be captured. Everything I did to purchase that land, or even as I've purchased it, after I've purchased, before and after, as long as it's before resale, all of those cost elements should be put together. All right. And then you can now be able to have a proper margin, profit margin, or as markup to say, okay, this is the price of my property that I'm reselling for a particular return, that makes you actually feel you're getting a good return on your investment. So it's very important that we take note of such.
All right. So, I have two more questions here, and then we bring this to a close.
All right.
Very briefly, is real estate investments, in your own opinion, something exclusive only for the high net worth individuals or the ultra high net worth individual? Because let's be real,
Um,
the way the country is right now, I don't think there's any middle class. It's
so that
either
you're
it's
here,
either you're the
yeah.
poor or you're the
Or
wealthy. So, what do you think of real estate investment? Because in general, I understand that a lot of pressure is going on out there. If you die without getting a piece of the earth and all that, it puts people under a
so much
certain,
pressure.
so much pressure.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of people who are out there feel like, okay, this thing is not for me, or there's a certain level of class financially I have to attain to be able to delve or invest or think about purchasing or investing in real estate. So, just for the viewers and people who are listening and watching from all over the world, what is your opinion on this, and what will you have to say to them concerning this?
All right. So investment generally, okay, I do not think is in the exclusive preserve of high net worth individual or ultra high net worth individual. I do not think so.
Yeah.
It still boils down to financial planning and having that goal of what you want to do with your funds. Okay, like I said earlier on, if Nigerian Exchange can have platforms for retail investors, then now we begin to have real estate companies, that are having fantastic payment plans. Anybody can wake up and come up with a plan and tell themselves, I want to own a land in 2 3 years, and they will actually achieve it. So it just has to do with, it boils down to the individual. It boils down, yes, so many people are out of jobs, so many people are the ones that are even having the jobs are not paid very well. But if you are determined and if this is what you want, okay, it's not about having a large mass of land, okay? You could start with a half plot of land. You could start with one plot of land, depending on the area. The land can be inside the bush, like my brothers will say. The more the inside, the lesser the money. The more the outside, the higher the money. So there is, in real estate, there is no place that is not a good area. Oh no. All right, just buy it and go and sleep. It's what we call land banking. And in a year or two or three, the value shoots up. Real estate is it's a beautiful investment platform, because I was giving an analogy the other day. I was saying, if I go into a car stand and I buy a car of 15 million naira, at the point where I just drive that car outside the gates, the value of that car has dropped. If somebody, Mr. B, comes to me and say, I want to buy this car from you, he would definitely not buy it up to the price I bought it. Switch to real estate. If I buy a land now and the deeds have been passed to me, everything perfected, and I walk out of the house of the owner of the land I just bought from, and somebody else wants to purchase that land, I would definitely not sell that land what I've just bought it. You know what? Increase. There will definitely be an increase in the price. So that's the beautiful thing about real estate. So anybody I know of, my laundryman, okay, I have this very hardworking laundryman that I patronize, and then I was shocked. Laundry, remember how much you make from laundry? A shirt is a 500, 200, and all that. And he walked up to me the other day and said, "Mother, please, I'll need your help." And I said, "What is it?" He said, "I purchased this land in wherever, so place." And I'm looking at him and he's like, "I want you to help me with the deed." And I'm still looking at him in shock. Not that I was looking down on him, but I never expected. All right. And guess how much this land was? 800,000 naira. Okay. That was a laundryman. He has 3 children. He has a wife. He has mother and father he takes care of. So how many years or how many clothes did he have to wash to be able to? So it boils down to the individual and it boils down to your planning.
Yeah.
Okay. And to shock you, that's not the only land he's bought. Just almost a year after that, he told me he had bought another half plot in a better place, of course, for a better, a higher sum. So I just advised him on what to do. You know what? You just do a quarter fence or whatever, some coaches, and then go and sleep. Allow the value of that land to increase and all that. And whether you like it or not, he's a landowner today. And if he wants to sell those lands again, of course,
definitely not the same amount
he
got.
So
definitely,
it's not for the high net worth individuals. Anybody, you can actually invest in real estate.
Okay, and that brings us to the end of our interview. And you said a couple of striking points that I believe we are going to stress more on in our next video.
All right.
But for this video, we're just strictly talking about financial planning and budgeting and all of that when it comes to investment.
Yeah.
So, but in our next video, hopefully we have someone else here who's going to specifically dive into land banking and all of that, and taking due diligence and stuff like that in proper, because these things are also things that are very important when considering investment in real estate. But yeah, with that being said, I am grateful for having you on board. It's a pleasure as always.
My pleasure.
So thank you for spending some time with us today. And for those of you out there who want to get to know her more, she's also the managing director for Light View Consultants, and this is where she helps startup companies, individuals, mentoring people who are passionate about their business, about their brand. Just give them that piece of advice to scale them in life. So if you want to reach out to her, her details will be displayed on the screen and in the description, so you can reach her on all the social media platforms that are available. So thank you very much, Barrister Faith. It was a pleasure to meet you and have you today.
Thank you, Triconna, for having me.
All right, thank you. All right, see you on the next one, guys.